Kip, what's up, man? So great to see you. Glad to be back for another Ask Me Anything today. Fielding questions, I believe, from the Facebook group that we didn't get to last week, if I understand correctly.
That's correct. From the Facebook group. To join us there, go to facebook.com/group/order of man, and you can participate in future AMAs.
Better place to do it is the Iron Council, because not only are you going to participate in AMAs, but all the other discussions and conversations and channels and regional meetups. We had Mitch just hosted a hunt this last weekend. Sounds like it went really well. I just heard from Johnny Loretti. He and his team have a meetup coming up in the Boston area early next year. I think it's May of next year. So these guys are not only getting together digitally and connecting that way with proven systems and results and brotherhood and accountability, but they're actually connecting face to face, which is our vision. This is what we wanted.
Totally.
So
it's perfect.
Yeah, man, it's working. It's working.
The ball is rolling forward.
My plan is working.
Yes.
World domination. Soon, my brothers, soon.
All right. Should we jump into it?
Let's get to it, man.
All right. Dustin McDan, how to be tactically courageous as a leader, making unpopular decisions because it is the right thing to do in the moment of that dynamic situation, but knowing that in time, said decision may or may not work out. Kind of like making decisions during the fog of war concept.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we need to reframe this as some new phenomenon. Yeah, your decisions might not work out.
Yep.
That's life. That's the courageous part. You said tactical. What do you say? Tactically
courageous.
It's just courage. I don't even think we need to say tactical courage. Courage is doing something that may actually put you in harm's way. Yeah. So if there's a fire and you know there's a baby inside and you run in, that may not work out. Like, you may die.
That's the risk.
Yeah. That's the courage component. If there was no risk to it, it wouldn't be courageous. Yeah. So yeah, it may not work out. And I think we just come to terms with that. And we have to calculate if that's a risk we're willing to take. If there's a baby in a burning building, I would hope, I don't know, because I've never been presented with this situation, I would hope I would weigh that very quickly and make the decision to go in and try to rescue that baby.
Yeah.
But that's a decision that we have to make. If it's a business decision, yeah, you might pour tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars into a project and, didn't work. So we can mitigate our risk, though.
Yeah.
And so if we take the burning building analogy, if I were to get myself an air tank and a respirator and run in there, my likelihood of surviving would increase. If I had flame retardant clothing on and I ran in there, my likelihood of surviving would increase. If we're talking about a business investment, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, if I were to hire a coach who's walked other businesses through this criteria, through this scenario, my likelihood of it working would actually be increased. So we do want to hedge our bets. That's why we invest in coaches and mentors and resources and training and everything else that we can to make sure that when we do make a courageous choice, we do it with as much stacked in our favor as possible.
Totally. I have nothing to say. Good stuff.
Man.
Bob Ross has the next question.
I stumped Kip.
What's that?
I've reached the pinnacle of podcasting. Yeah. I said something and Kip's like, I don't have anything else to add. This is it. Let's just end it.
Yeah. I'm just giving the people what they want to hear. That is just rapid fire. Let's just hear Mickler's responses. Right? No. And there's value in us not repeating what's already been, it's solid.
Of course. Right.
Yeah. So, Bob Ross, when faced with decisions that can involve emotions like buying or selling a home, what skills do you employ to keep emotions out of the equation and make the best possible decisions?
Time is a good resource.
Yeah.
Usually when we're confronted with something, our first natural inclination is to base our decisions on emotion. So if you can extend the time frame a little bit, you're more likely to make an informed decision because you can sit back and you can see what else is going on. You allow the other parts of your more developed brain. This is scientific, by the way, your more developed brain to take over and to the logical side of things. We have that reptilian brain and the mammalian brain, right? The reptilian brain is known for making rash, emotionally based decisions based on survival. And
Yeah.
then you have that mammalian brain, which is more logical, more rational. But if you look at the evolution of human beings, our reptilian brain is the oldest, most core component of our brains. And so that's what takes hold first. So if you can give yourself some time, I think that's important. We mentioned it in the previous question with regards to resources. If I'm selling a house, for example, Kip, and I trust you and you have some credibility in the department, and I call you up and I'm like, hey man, here's the deal. I'm thinking about selling this home, and here's the rate, and here's what I'm doing, and here's what I'm going through. You as an individual are not emotionally vested in my decision-making process. Now you're a friend, sure, or a colleague or a coworker or a coach. So there's a little bit of vesting, but not nearly to the same degree that I have. So you can see things. Let me give an example. This is why when you're having relationship issues, you can go to your friend and say, bro, you're a dumbass. You just need to do X, Y, and Z. And he knows because he's not emotionally vested in your decision-making process. It's your emotional decision-making process that's clouding your judgment. Why is it so clear for us to see somebody struggling and say, dude, just do A, B, and C. You're done. You're fine.
Yeah.
Why can't he see that? Because he's emotionally vested.
Emotionally tied to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So just go find people who are your friends, who want the best for you, and they're not emotionally tied to your decision-making process, and ask them for feedback, and then listen. Even though it might sound like it goes against every fiber of your being, maybe just listen to it. There's only one other thing I would say to this is just listen to intuition. I mean, we're talking about this reptilian brain, and listen to your intuition. If your intuition is telling you this doesn't feel right, this is off, be careful, warning lights, it's okay to listen to that. It's, you don't need to always have a logical answer for that. And sometimes just you being intuitively aware of what you're feeling or experiencing, even though you can't quite put a finger on it, is enough.
Yeah. Just that gut check mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always feel too, like whenever I've made bad decisions, I feel rushed. Like it's a rush thing. And if I feel pressured, I will just I'll call it. I'll go, nope, I'm not going to be rushed into this decision. And because I know if I just give it time, and if it's the right thing, then I'll execute when I don't feel rushed. But if I'm rushed, that's kind of like the sign I use of like, no, I'm being maybe too emotional about this, or I'm being pressured or too excited about it or whatever. Because you'll notice that a lot of time, and I don't know the logic or the idea around this, but sometimes when we make emotional decisions, it's almost like we got to do it now. We got to do it now, right?
Yep.
And it's like, and there's no reason to be rushed, and it's because of those emotional feelings we want to execute on. So
that's the scarcity mindset, I think, kicking in, Kip, is, if you have a quote unquote investment opportunity, let's say a friend calls you and is like, hey, I got this investment opportunity. You're like, cool. Can I sit on it for a day or two? No, we need by 7 p.m. tonight. Like, this is it. We need to have it now. You're like, oh shit. If I don't do this, I'm going to miss out. And that
will never come again. Yeah.
It will. The deal that whoever's presenting you is not as great as they're making out to be. It'll happen again. This one, if they're rushing you, I had a friend who used to say, if it's a good deal today, it'll be a good deal tomorrow. Totally. Yeah, you might miss out on some things. I went with someone this weekend to Home Depot, and she was getting some new hardware for her cabinets. And she's like, oh, you know what? I think they mismarked these, so I'm going to go get them. And she went, and they had updated the price to reflect the accurate price. But a day or two earlier, it was $3 less for each handle. So she would have saved about 35% on each one of these handles. She's like, I should have done it. Yeah, maybe, but okay. So you're out $3 times, what'd you need? 10 handles. You're out $30. So what, in the grand scheme of things, it's fine. And I only illustrate that point to say you're going to probably miss on some things, but that's okay. It's really okay. Other opportunities will present themselves.
Yeah. Chalk it up to learning to
one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. All right. Dirk Herma, for TRT, do either of you use anything What do you use? What is the process? How did you go about said process? I'm 34. I've had my testosterone levels checked and it's in below 300s. I've tried supplements and they didn't work. I've heard a lot of people on podcasts say that veterans and first responders are susceptible to low levels of low levels. I'm both. I lift weights, work out regularly. I do not follow a specific diet, but I stick to the protein and vegetables most part. I just don't know where to start. Also, I don't know how to determine if some of these male clinics are a scam or if they're legit.
Yeah. So I personally take testosterone. Do you, Kip?
No, I haven't. I
So I
haven't even
do.
done my blood panel work yet.
That's the first step.
Like one of the things that is on my list. I'm like, I need to get that done. I don't even know.
Yeah, that's the first step.
Yeah.
That which is measured improves. We know that.
Yeah.
So if you want to know where you're at, the first thing you need to do is go get it measured. And you can go to what I would suggest is if you're worried about these male type clinics that promote this testosterone stuff, just go to independent resource. There's a great one called Any Lab Test Now. That's where I get my testosterone checked.
Yep.
I walk in, they draw my blood. I get the results in a day or two, and they're not tied to it. They're not making money off of selling me testosterone. It's completely independent. And then I take that. In fact, I actually did it today. Because I had my blood drawn last week, got the results this morning, Monday morning. Sent them off to Johnny Loretti, who's in the Iron Council. I said, Johnny, tell me what you think of this. And my testosterone, when I started this about a year or so ago, roughly, it was down in the mid 250s, which is significantly depleted.
Yeah.
It's not where it needs to be. So what I would suggest to you first and foremost is before you start doing testosterone injections, I would really look at ways that you can boost testosterone naturally. And I'm not saying this will always yield the results, but there's some things that you can do. So proper sleep is crucial.
Yeah.
Your diet is crucial. There's so many preservatives and androgen blockers in not only what you're consuming, the plastics and the hormones and the bullshit that you're eating, but also the soaps that you're putting on your body, the plastics that you're consuming through. If you pour water into a plastic water bottle, the androgen blockers that are in the plastics, you're actually consuming those. So that's not going to allow, and I'm not an expert on this, but the way I understand it is that testosterone to bind to your cells to allow your body to process it correctly. So those are called androgen blockers or disruptors, as I've heard both terms. So diet, exercise, nutrition, sleep, unnecessary and high levels of stress, because then that increases your cortisol levels, which reduces testosterone development. Sex, competition, all the things that we talked about in the testosterone booster t-shirt that everybody lost their minds about. That's all. I made this shirt and it was like, oh, I can't believe. I'm like, that's just scientific data. I just said it in a way that pisses you off, but that's scientifically proven to be the case. So we called it our T booster, and it was like, eat meat, compete, lift heavy things, sleep, have sex, be a man.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa,
I love that shirt.
Can't believe whoa. Lost their dang minds over it. But this is what you need to do as a man. So do that for a period of time. You can't do it for a week and think that everything's going to improve, but really consider your lifestyle. Go to a third party place like Any Lab Test Now or something else. I'm sure there's another place you can go to. And then I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, yeah, you can talk with your physician, but I don't really know that your physician's the best place for this. But I would ask around and I would try to find a reputable source. I have a place here in Southern Utah that I go to, highly recommended. A couple of my other friends have used this specific doctor, and I've been happy with the results. In a period of 6 months, it went from 250 up to, 750, 720, somewhere right in there.
And where should you be at? Typically around 700?
800. I think it goes up to 1100 if I understand correctly, but 800, 1100. I mean, this is a natural progression of age as well. But if you look at testosterone rates for men today versus men 50 years ago, for calculated for age, they're drastically reduced. Drastically reduced. And that has to do with our lifestyle and the things that we're
diets
consuming.
And all kinds of crap. Yeah.
Sedentary lifestyles, all of this sort of thing. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah. if you don't mind me adding to your recommendations of like natural sources, the reason why, just think through that. Give the list of all the natural things you could do, and then ask yourself whether your testosterone increased or not. Would it be beneficial for you to be doing all those things? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, of
So
course.
don't shortcut yourself, right? And that's, we rob ourselves whenever we take a shortcut. We rob ourselves from the opportunity of growth and development.
Mm-hmm.
And there's value in the hardship of, wait, hold on, Ryan. You mean get some good sleep and work out and do, geez, that's too much. Let me just inject, right? It's like, dude, you're robbing yourself from the chance of leveling up in a very serious way by doing those things first.
and
And
also
then if they're not working, then pivot.
and also if you're taking testosterone supplementation, it's only going to be enhanced by you working out, by you sleeping, by you
Yeah,
competing, by you doing all the things
totally.
that we talk about. So if you're gonna,
Yeah.
that's what you'll hear a lot of guys. You'll see rip guys, and people say, "Well, you're on testosterone, bro." If all it was is testosterone, then every man on the planet would take it, and we'd all
Yeah.
look
They're still
jacked like
working
the
out
guys
and
on
putting
TV.
in the
Of
reps. Yeah.
course. So
Yeah.
don't tell me that if I could sell you a pill and you'd have 6-pack abs in the next 2 weeks, you wouldn't take it. Of course you would.
Totally.
What you're doing is you're complaining that somebody put in the work and you're discounting it because they're taking testosterone. Like that's the thing that put them over the edge.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, most of those guys are they're excusing something, right? They're like,
that's what
well,
it
you know,
is.
it's
Yeah.
that it's can't be all this hard work that you're doing. I don't want to give you credit for that, you know.
There's
So
one other thing to be aware of with testosterone. There's research that suggests that if you begin to take testosterone, your body's ability to create testosterone for itself, and don't quote me on this because I'm not a doctor on this stuff,
I've heard the
like go
same
talk with
thing.
somebody,
Yeah.
but your body's ability to naturally produce the testosterone levels that your body needs will become diminished and in some cases never actually begin to work again. So it's a commitment. Like if you're going to do it, you're in the game. It's a commitment.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I totally get Dirk's question because like some of the guys I know that are on TRT, I swear, like the guy that's hooking them up, it's almost like they're TRT physicians. They're not like looking
Yeah.
at the full panel and discussing all these things. They're just straight
Yeah.
up like, "Yep, it's low. Let me get you TRT," right? And they're just drug dealing.
No, it's true. So
TRT.
here's what
So
I would say is again, use a third party for testing, use a reputable clinician. Think about where your testosterone's coming. If you're ordering it from Mexico overseas, that's a red flag.
yeah,
I get my testosterone from the pharmacist. Like I drive down to the pharmacy, my doctor calls in a
from the vet.
prescription, and yeah, from the vet, horse tranquilizers. And that's why I'm so jacked, clearly.
Like a
Uh
horse.
yeah. And then my pharmacist, who's licensed and reputable and credible, gives me the prescription. Like there's I'm not buying it from Canada or China or
Yeah.
something. Be smart.
Yeah. Full disclosure, obviously we already said, like, you know, talk to your physician. What any side effects that you've experienced? Like, because I've gotten a handful from guys, and I'm curious if you're getting any
I when I started taking it a while ago, I did my
at
emotional,
first.
yeah, my emotions were dysregulated. I felt like
Yeah.
I was more emotional than I had been in the past. I was like, wait, I
Yeah.
thought this was supposed to help me be a man, like not be more emotionally charged, but I was.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that had to do with I was doing testosterone, but I wasn't doing the other work too.
Got it.
So that was part of it. Yeah, so moodiness I think was something I dealt with. Libido obviously goes up, your
Yeah.
sex drive. I think for me, and I don't even consider this a side effect necessarily, but like I have to be active, I have to be engaged. I want to go work, I want to go walk, I want to go do something, I want to be physical, I want to go for a run, I want to go to the gym, I don't want to be like live the sedentary lifestyle. I don't think
Yeah.
that's a side effect. I think that's actually a feature.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
So that's what I experienced.
Cool. All right, Dirk, there you go, man. All right, Adam Beachy, how do you grow a small side business from 12K in revenue to 50K? I run a 3D printing business selling items on Etsy, and I want to expand off onto my own website. I also want to get my foot in the door at manufacturing companies to work with them. Any advice on how to reach out and start that relationship?
I mean, really, to grow your revenue, you can only do one of two things. You can increase your prices for current customers, or you can pick up new customers at your current pricing, or a combination.
Yeah.
It's really all you can do. So, what I would suggest at this point, and we'll talk about the manufacturing relationships, but what I would suggest at this point is the first thing you said is Etsy. I don't know about Etsy. I don't, that's not a platform I'm on. I don't know about Pinterest. That's not a platform I'm on. Where I am is Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah.
And if you're doing 3D printing, I think something that's heavily visually driven like Instagram is probably going to be your best bet. And if you
Good
can
way to
learn to
market.
use, yeah, if you can learn to use
Yeah.
Instagram in an effective and powerful way, I think that's going to help you just exponentially increase your business. I'll sit on Facebook sometimes and I'll watch. It was funny. I was watching I think it's called Bourbon Moth Woodworking or something. Bourbon Moth Woodworking. The guy
Mhm.
is incredible. He makes this beautiful furniture and shelving. And yesterday he was upgrading the video I watched anyways was him upgrading his table saw. And he made this like beautifully like wood inlay. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And the way that he edited the video was compelling and interesting. And
The
I'm like, I want
story
to do
behind
that.
it.
I want to be a
Yeah.
woodworker now. And so I had two thoughts. I'm like, I want to do this myself, or I want to hire this guy to build something for me.
Yeah.
And that's the power of using social media. So what I would suggest, I don't know what you're printing, but I would suggest going to wherever your audience is. If you're printing, I don't even know. What I don't know. What do people print? This isn't a world I'm familiar with. What do you
What
print?
do they 3D print? I don't know.
I don't know
Most
what you
people I
print.
know, it's almost like goofy stuff just to be fun.
Oh, here I've got a good example. Okay, so I've got a sheep skull right up here on my safe over here across from me. And I went to a Western hunting expo that I go to every year in Utah. It's in February or March of every year. And there was a booth there, and the guy will take a skull of an animal that you shot, and then he'll scan it however he scans it, and then he'll 3D print it in a different size. So he'll shrink it down to 1/6 size or whatever. And so he's 3D
Yeah.
printing these things. The reason that I bring this guy up is he's printing animal skulls and he's at the hunting expo. Like
Yeah.
imagine him being at the craft the knitting women of, America, and he's showing these women 3D skulls that he's like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But that's
Totally.
what we do. We go online and we're like, oh yeah, I'm printing these 3D
3D
skulls. Like,
printing
what
for
do you think?
everybody. Yeah.
Like, nobody cares about that. There's a very select few people who care about it. And that select few is a big enough pool that you could actually make a very, very lucrative business from. But you have to go exactly where that is and talk exactly to those people. To your point, if you go out and you talk to everybody, nobody cares. So a great example of that is what we're doing here, Order of Man. I'll post something online and a woman will come in and say, well, this applies to women too. Well, of course. Like, we're talking about principles that apply broadly to men and women. There are some things that we talk about that are exclusively reserved for men, but for the most part, like what we talk about also applies to women. But I don't talk to women. And some people say, well, but you're excluding half the population. Yep. Yep. Because I want to make sure that the way that I talk, the way I communicate, the way this podcast studio looks, the words I'm using, the imagery that I'm employing speaks to my audience, which is men. And then we break it down even further. And you and I went through and we pulled out some demographical data from income level to occupation to how many kids to marital status to place they live to hobbies and interests they're engaged in. Because I want to speak to those people. And I know that over 50% of the men who listen to this podcast are between the ages of 25 to 45. So do I need to focus on 15-year-olds? No. Do I need to focus on 65-year-olds? No. Are we going to pick some up? Probably. But my main demographic is 25 to 45 years old because I know these are the individuals I'm speaking with.
So, which allows you to provide better content and provide a better service.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep. What was the
totally.
question about manufacturing relationships?
So he says, I want to get my foot in the door at manufacturing companies to work with them. Any advice on how to reach out and start that relationship?
What I would have, okay, so here's what I would do. Let me share a story with you. When I was early in this podcasting space, I had another podcast called Wealth Anatomy, and it was geared towards helping medical professionals with their financial services. And I really wanted to get featured on a financial blogger's website. His name is Jeff Rose, Good Financial Sense. And I'd been following Jeff for months, and I read all of his articles. I knew what he liked. I knew how he presented. I knew how he communicated. And I really resonated with the guy. And I thought it'd be really cool if I wrote an article for Jeff and then I just promoted my podcast, because now he's going to take that and he's going to promote that to his audience because it's a value to his audience.
So to be clear, you wrote valuable content that he could use and republish for
Correct.
his audience group. Got it.
Yeah. Now, the way that most people will do this is they'll reach out to somebody like Jeff and they'll say, hey, I would like to write an article for your website on X, Y, and Z. What do you think?
Yeah.
Wrong approach. What I did is I said, hey, Jeff, I wrote a 1,500 word article on X, Y, and Z. I can't remember what it was about.
Yeah.
And I already wrote it, and it's attached to this email, and it's catered to your audience. And I remember specifically making a few jokes and little cracks at In-N-Out restaurant because I know Jeff loves In-N-Out.
Yeah.
So I put that into the article and I sent it to him and I said, hey, here's the article I wrote. I would love for you to publish it. Hopefully it helps your audience, but also it just gives me a little bit of acknowledgement.
Yeah, clear on your intent.
Yeah.
Right.
And he wrote me back and he's like, Ryan, this is awesome. He's like, of course, I'll publish this tomorrow. Because it's content for him. It makes him more credible. It gives me a little boost. It was speaking to his audience. He didn't have to do any work. I went through, I edited it, I cleaned it all up. It had a flavor of his communication style. He's like, man, this is amazing. I can't tell you how many times people want to write for me, but they don't ever give me anything to look at. And you didn't even ask, you just wrote it. And I remember thinking at the time, if Jeff doesn't use this article, I'll just take it somewhere else. Like, that's fine. I'll change out a few jokes, tweak a few words, and I'll take it somewhere else. No harm, no foul. That's the attitude that we have to have when we're going to present ourselves to certain companies or organizations. So to bring this full circle, if you're wanting to work with a manufacturer company, the last thing you want to do is go to them and say, let's say you're the manufacturing company, Kip, and I come to you, I send you an email or a phone call or a voicemail or even just drop in. And I'm like, hey, how can I help you? Wrong answer. Now I'm creating more work for you.
Yeah,
right off
and now
the
I have
bat.
to think and serve you and help you figure out how to help me. Like,
yeah,
you're wasting my time. Yeah.
But imagine this for a second. Imagine I came to you and you sold, let's say, I'm just trying to use our analogy from earlier. Let's say as a manufacturing company, you built mounting hardware for taxidermy and skulls. That's what you did as a manufacturing company. Okay.
Yeah.
And I come to you and I said, hey, Kip, like, you guys are working with hunters across the planet. You're selling brackets, you're selling hardware, you're selling mounting equipment. But one thing I don't see you have is you don't have any way to actually display how these units would work and what they would actually look like with real mounts on them, from Tara in New Zealand to bighorn sheep in the high desert to caribou in Alaska and Canada. And lo and behold, I actually have 5 skulls here, and I bought some of your hardware and I put together a quick promo video so you can actually show people what your hardware does in reality and using our 3D skulls. And by the way, the hunters who are buying your stuff, they might be interested also in 3D skulls. And if this skull, let's say on average costs $500, I can give you a 20% kickback on anything that you sell through your website because you're already selling to the hardware. Now we just sell replicas of the skulls or the mounts or the horns or the antlers, and you get a 20% kickback on all of this. Come on now. That's a different kind of conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
We're no longer talking about should we do this? We're talking about how do we do this? And
And you've
that's how
already
you want to
laid
make it
out
work.
the value. You probably already have metrics and numbers of like, how quick could you make these? What was the cost on them? What the margins could, like, you just laid it all out and I get a look and go, awesome, let's do it.
Well, how do we
Or
do it?
actually, if you could tweak a couple things, I'm sold, right? Like it's
Yeah.
very minimal cycle time for me to evaluate and consider.
Right. And if you don't take me up on the offer, I think a lot of people get concerned because, like, oh, what if I do all that work? Well, that goes back to the tactically courageous thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You might do a bunch of work and they don't take you up on it. But how many other companies sell mounting hardware for taxidermy? 1,000, 100, maybe a dozen. Yeah. Just take it somewhere else. It's fine.
It's spot on. I mean, and it's so, dude, and we see this all the time. It's frustrating. Like I can even think of examples where we want to pitch an idea like, oh, well, hey, what's this thing that, where's this need? Ryan, tell me how we could help you. You know, it's like, dude, do the legwork up front, identify the gaps up front and say, hey, we have a solution. It identifies these gaps. This is the benefit to you. Let's roll. And what's going to happen in that is you might be 80% there. But if you explain a gap to me that you're addressing and you're 80%, I'm like, that's great. Could you do a little bit of tweaking? And now we have something. Now our barrier of entry is super simple. And what I really love about your letter is they tried you out. By you writing that ahead of time, you got vetted of like, oh, he can write well. Okay, done. And it's flattering too, to be honest with you. Like if someone wrote something on your behalf and gave it to you and said, hey, what do you think? It's a little flattering that like you went out of your way and wrote that up for me to consider.
Right.
Like there's an element of care in there that wouldn't exist otherwise.
Yeah. I'll give you a little secret, a little insight. I'm hesitant to do this because I'm sure somebody will take me up on it. But let's say somebody wanted to be an editor for what we did, like they wanted to write articles or send emails or whatever. They wanted to be an editor for me. You know how many emails I get? I would love, and it's just like this. I would love to write a 2,000 word compelling email or article on these 7 things. Like this, I get these every single day. Every single day I get dozens. You know, if somebody just came to me and said, hey, Ryan, like I'd really like to edit for you, but in the meantime, I think I can be of value by transcribing all of your video podcasts into a written form and just send you an email every week. Would that be helpful for you? And they did that for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, and they did a good job. And I saw that it was valuable. And then they came to me and said, hey, has it been valuable? I'm like, yeah, it actually has. I really appreciate you doing that. They're like, hey, by the way, I also do articles. Would you be interested in an article per week? Yeah, I would be interested in that. Hey, my articles now, admittedly, like my articles, because it's a lot more time for me, they cost $50 an article. Are you comfortable with that if we were to go that route? You see what I'm saying? Like you're already providing solutions. You're already in the game.
Yeah. I have one of my oldest employees when I had my own consulting firm. He pinged me on LinkedIn and said, hey, give me one project. I'll do it for free. Send me the scope. We don't, minimal effort. Send me the scope of what needs to be developed. I'll develop it. We'll review it. And if you like my work, we can do future work together. I was like, all right, here you go. Dev away. Right. And he did great work. And I was like, awesome. Next project, and it was that simple. Or I have actually had someone take Instagram reels that I've done and then like formatted them to make them look more professional and sent it to me and said, hey, I made this for you. If you ever need an editor for your social media, would love your work. And I'm like, and I felt obligated to at least post it and tag him, which is beneficial in that. Right now, I'm like, I really don't have need for your services, but like, it was a no brainer, and it was flattering. I'm like, man, this guy went through a bunch of videos and like did this, this formatting. I was like, that's awesome.
Yep.
I don't know.
I like this stuff. This stuff's fun to talk about. All right, what's next?
All right, Austin Chamberlain. What are some good resources for marketing and advertising for business? I'm starting my business and I have Facebook and an Instagram page, but I don't know how to use the analytics to my advantage.
I don't know either. I can't give you an answer on that. I think you just
Yeah,
go hire somebody who does that. Just Google Facebook analytics, watch some YouTube. That's where I would start. I would start with some YouTube videos if that's of interest to you. Get your feet
totally.
under you a little bit, and then maybe start asking around for some recommendations. But I don't have
Yeah.
an answer to that because I
Get
don't
some
really dig
coaching
into that
on
kind of stuff.
SEO and all that kind
Yeah.
of jazz.
If
But
you just Google
now,
that, you'll find a resource for sure.
but I've heard you say this around provide value, right? But because I do feel like sometimes, like, oh, I got a company Facebook page and I got this, and now I just want business, right? Let me just advertise. And I've seen this with you, especially from a podcast perspective, is like provide value to people as a strong marketing strategy. Any additional thoughts to that, or am I off base there?
No, you're not. But what I would say with a caveat is provide actual value independent of anything else. So a lot of the
Yeah.
times people will
Otherwise,
add
it's
value.
the intent is questioned.
Yeah. So let me give you an example. Sorry if you guys are in the fitness world, but you guys suck at this. Like you guys absolutely suck at this. So let me just share this with you. If let's say we've got 76,000 guys roughly in our Facebook group, and you come in there and you're like, hey guys, like, what's the biggest concern you have with your fitness? And then people start commenting and you're like, oh, I'm giving away a free resource on that. Just DM me the word yes or whatever. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like you're already failing because you're teeing people up and you're being sneaky and you're being manipulative, and nobody likes to be manipulated that way. So you either need to be honest, which is, hey guys, I provided a free resource for you. Now, admittedly, it does lead you to my coaching solutions and offerings, but as a standalone product, if you're just interested in dabbling, it's pretty good by itself. But if you want more, I'm available. At least you're being honest. At least you have your
Totally.
integrity intact. And if you're not going to do that, then just say, hey guys, here's 10 fitness tips that I think you could use today. Don't say like, so call me, so DM me, so download my free guide. That's bullshit. Just say the
Yeah.
thing. And then if you do that enough and you offer real value just for the sake of offering value, enough people are going to find you. That's how we built Order of Man. I would go into other Facebook groups and I never posted about Order of Man, not only because I'm not going to take a dump in somebody else's house, but because I knew it didn't work. So I'd go into the other Facebook groups and I would see guys asking questions about topics that pertain to men, and I would just answer them with my perspective. No,
Totally.
see me for more. No, listen to my podcast. No, download my free ebook. No, just go in there and provide value purely because you want to be valuable, and then just let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. And what is that? It's validating that you're a good resource. That's what it is. I mean, on sales calls, we'll do demos all the time. My 100% objective on a call is just to help them in the short amount of window of time that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing this a long time, and trust me, I've had many sales reps go, dude, you're giving away our trade secrets, and like, yeah. And I'm like, this is all about building trust. I have 45 minutes with this client to illustrate how smart we are, what we do. And if they walk away 45 minutes like, man, that was highly effective and we got some stuff and we're going to run, awesome. But now they know that we know what we're talking about. And now when they need our help, our expertise and trust has been established. That's what you're doing when you give out that kind of free content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very careful in the way that I say this because I know I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I had somebody reach out a year ago when I was going through like the depths of my divorce, and they reached out and they sent me a text, said, hey man, how are you? I'm like, man, truth be told, I'm really struggling, like going through this shit right now. And it's been hard, and man, I just feel lost and I'm just struggling. And I'll never forget their answer. It was, hey, if it would be helpful for me to do a free training for your guys, like I could definitely help you with that.
Yeah,
What? What?
it's funny.
It's just it's not even funny. It's just, I mean, I know what you're saying. It's just it's pathetic.
Yeah.
Like just be valuable in the moment, like read the room, be aware. offer value just because it's valuable, and then know if you do that enough, things will work
Yeah.
out.
And ill intent or
It
question
wasn't.
intent has a taste.
Yeah.
People, they know. So everyone listening are like, yeah, but they're not like as good as I am. No, people
No,
know,
we
and it
know.
tastes horrible. Like
Yeah.
even if it's,
Repulsive.
yeah, you don't want to deal with people that way because you can't trust them. It almost erodes trust if someone's questioning your intent. So just be authentic. And if you are doing the hard sell, then say, hey, here's the hard sell. And at least then I'll respect you for being so damn straightforward,
For sure.
So
For
yeah, don't beat
sure.
around the bush on that stuff. All right. Christopher Hickman. Well, we'll read it anyway. Nothing to ask. Just wanted to say thank you for your message and consistency once again. The principles you've laid out have become the foundation of my life, and I show up for my wife, my daughter, my business, and my community. Keep up the good work.
That's awesome. That's why we're doing this. That's what we're all about. So if we're helping you or any other guy, like, man, I feel good about that. And kudos to you for doing the work. Lots of people
Yeah,
listen and don't do the work. You're doing the work. So
true. So true. All right. Isaiah Stern, how would you recommend getting over the mindset of always trying to prove yourself to those around you? I feel like I always have to be pushing my absolute best, and I don't allow myself to rest. I grew up in a household that always shut me down and told me I wasn't enough. This is good. I like this question.
I don't know the answer to it though, Kip. I don't
No?
know. I didn't grow up in a house like that, to be straight on that. Like I
Yeah.
never had that of like this high expectation or demands of perfection or anything like that. My mom was very understanding and
Loving.
empathetic and nurturing, loving. Yeah, just kind, right? And she
Yeah.
expected me to to make good decisions, to make good choices, and to live a good life. But as far as the expectation of a certain performance, or I had to validate her love through my efforts, it was never anything like that. I don't know where I adopted that mentality of deriving my sense of worth from the value that I provide. I think there's an element of truth to that, but I also believe that, and although I do find it difficult at times, I believe that we are intrinsically valuable as human beings.
Yeah.
And again, I struggle like that. I know that to be true, but I still wrestle with it because when I
Yeah.
show up to do this podcast, I want to be valuable. When I show up in a romantic relationship, I want to be valuable. If I show up in my kids' lives, I want to be valuable. And there's maybe some selfishness to that. You know, that's something to consider, is
Yeah.
that if you're always wanting to be valuable to other people, then maybe you're doing it not for their own benefit, but for yours, because you derive some sorts of satisfaction from it.
Totally.
So I don't I don't know the answer to that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Would you have any thoughts on that, Kip?
I, I think it's important. Right, here's something to add, maybe more thoughts to the question, actually. But sometimes when I read about the type of people that are constantly trying to prove themselves, they're trying to prove themselves through something, right? It's like, I'm going to hold on to this project. I'm going to make it my own. I'm not going to ask for help because like I'm going to build this thing and I'm going to prove, and everybody's like going to like think of me better. And a lot of the time, those people fail to realize that it's the person that they are showing up as day in, day out that will get my respect. And all the things that they're doing around the project or around the thing is setting them up to not be appreciated and liked. So be very careful that you don't lose yourself in results. Like I talked about this the other week. Sometimes employees will look at him and will go, does Ryan have the ability and the skill necessary to do the job? And we're like, yes, he's highly skilled. Then we'll say, is he working hard? Yep, he works hard. And then we in the sentence, yep, he's a great employee. No. There's a third measure, and that is your impact on those around you. So be very careful that your quest to look good through things, improving yourself, doesn't have a negative impact, because I think far too often we think it's these results and these other things that will prove our worth, when in reality, it's how we got there that determines how we're valued by others.
Mm.
So just be mindful of that. But I think this is a battle because we talk about it. Hey, you need to be a producer, not a consumer. And that's how you provide value. And it's true. And you need to deliver results, but be careful that you're like just not out seeking validation from everybody but yourself, or validation from a higher sense of being and not just social acceptance, because that could be dangerous too.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have to just question our motives when we do things. Like, why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah. Is it aligned with like the mission or what we're trying to accomplish as a team versus just you looking good?
Well, what I guess maybe put another way is, would you still do that thing if nobody ever knew about it?
Yeah.
Like if you told yourself, I'm going to go for a run today and nobody's going to know whether you did or didn't, would you still go do it? And I think the person that you need to prove yourself to the most is yourself.
Yeah.
If you can wake up and fulfill all of the commitments that you made today,
To
then I
yourself.
think you can
Yeah.
prove to yourself that you're worthwhile, that you're special, that you're important, and that there's a tremendous sense of value
Hmm.
in what you do. If it's always commitments to other people, but you're only doing it for praise or accolades or notoriety. I mean, look, there's guys who will like do the dishes and they're like, well, I did the dishes tonight. What do you think? Like, it's cool, right? It's like, what? So you're only doing the dishes to get laid.
And they're
That's
not going
why
to get laid all the time. And then their
not like that.
expectations, they're going to be, well, and it's not always going to work.
That's true.
Sometimes we're going to do
Exactly.
amazing things and no one's going to notice,
Yeah.
or they won't say how amazing it was. And then what?
Right. Or donating to charity. You know, you'll see people donate to charity or leave a big tip and then they'll post about it on social media. It's like, I mean,
Validation
on
again.
what you can make the argument that they're encouraging other people to do the same. I can make that argument. And maybe that's true and maybe that will work, but also, or are you doing it so you'll get attaboys and pats on the back for doing it?
Boy.
And then it's about other people. It's no longer about what was right and what was moral and righteous and what you should have done and the work you should have been doing, but what you're going to get acknowledged for doing. It's been very liberating being off social media quite a bit more than I've been in the past, because there's all sorts of things that happen on a daily basis that I don't really feel compelled to share with anybody. And they're good things,
Yeah.
because I don't need somebody to say, hey, Ryan, you're awesome. Because I'm not, but also I don't,
But you
I
have
don't,
some
I'm not even to get
confidence.
into the
Yeah.
specifics of what I do, but I'm not going to get into the specifics on social media unless I'm trying to encourage somebody else to do it or there's a lesson I think that can be extracted from it. I'd rather just keep it to myself and just like be a good person without having to be acknowledged for it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel so what I'm hearing what you say is obviously check your intent, right? What's the reason why we're doing it? Making sure that it's in line with not just getting like that you're honoring your commitments to yourself first. And that if we are doing something, that it's rooted in genuinely helping people and serving others and not, validation, external validation from other individuals. And with that said, I think it's something that we have to fight for all the time. I remember years and years ago in the Iron Council, I was, I was battle team leader. And I remember once where I was complaining about the team to myself. I was like, man, these guys are all superficial, right? They're not sharing. They're like, disconnected. They're not authentic with each other, right? I wanted more raw discussion within the team. And then I remember thinking like leaders go first. I'm like, well, am I doing that? Am I sharing that way? And I came to the conclusion that I had joined the ranks of battle team leader. The original intent was pure, right? I wanted to be on this team. I wanted to serve guys. And over this period of time, I slowly got to the point where I didn't want to be seen as not perfect. I wanted to seek their approval. I kind of lost my way a little bit. And I had to check myself and go, no, wait, hold on. Why am I in this role? Is it for me? Is it for me to look good? Is it for anything other than to serve these guys? And I had to adjust how I was showing up because I lost sight of that. And so I think it's easy for us to get our egos and, get sideways sometimes if we don't constantly confirm why are we doing what we're doing and what's the ideal purpose and the mission of what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And I also think one litmus test that you can use is just don't take credit for anything ever.
Yeah.
Like, just stop taking credit for things. If somebody pays you a compliment, say thank you. Like, be gracious about that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, if there's a team project or something that you've done, or even something that you did in secret that was good, you don't need to take credit for it. Just don't. Just give credit to somebody else, especially if other people were involved. And yeah, you may have been a big part of that, but you know what? Yeah, the reason this podcast is so wonderful is because Kip does an amazing job. Like, I don't need to take credit. And if you're always looking for credit from things, then your motives, your intent might be off a little bit. But if there's nothing to be gained by doing it, then your motive is a bit more pure, I
Likely
believe.
aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. That was our last question. We actually got through all those.
Cranked them out, man.
All right. Cool, man. We'll just
Well,
wrap up. So I think the key things, right? We mentioned the Facebook group earlier. You can join us at facebook.com/group/Order of Man. And as always, you can learn about the Iron Council by going to orderofman.com/Iron Council. The key thing that we're suggesting people to consider is the open enrollment for the IC won't open until December for starting in Jan 1.
Right.
But if you want to get on that path now and start making some progress, join our Battle Ready program. To learn more, go to orderofman.com/battle ready. And that's a process by which you can kind of, in a light version, join us in the Iron Council and follow some of those systems and processes and start making some progress. And those guys that join the IC are well prepared to hit the ground running when they join us. So once again, that's orderofman.com/battle ready. And of course, you can connect with Mr. Mickler on X and Instagram at Ryan Mickler. Do you have any new sweaters still available?
The sweaters are available. It's all on pre-order right now. They should be here next week. I'm going to be gone next week, so they'll ship the early part of the following week. So get on it now, because I think we're actually getting through quite a bit. I'm not sure how much of a selection we have at this point, because we've sold a lot of hoodies, man. A lot of hoodies.
Perfect.
So
those are awesome. Badass. So store.orderofman.com is the URL. Store.orderofman.com for all your Order of Man swag.
That's right. Well, guys, I appreciate the questions. Again, I hope we gave you some things to consider today. Keep the questions coming. We'll try to give you answers as best we know how. And like I said today, I'm like, I don't know. I probably said I don't know 3 or 4 times, because sometimes I don't, and I'm trying to figure out a lot of this stuff along the way, and I stumble and just trip up just as much as anybody else. So just keep staying on the path, keep working, keep growing, and we'll be back on Friday. But until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.